to everyone. Welcome to our end of season celebration. I'm Shannon Bolt. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the SSGN Pigeon Guillemot Breeding Survey Program Coordinator. And I should also mention that I hail from the South Sound region and I am an enthusiastic surveyor myself. So I'm happy to see everybody from all the different regions, the surveyors. And before we start, I kind of already reminded folks to mute themselves. And then also if you could rename yourselves and put the region that you're coming from, that would be great. And so thank you for being here tonight to help us celebrate the successful close of another PIGU survey season. It always amazes me how quickly the season goes by. And if you're anything like me, it's a little bit bittersweet. It's easy to become attached to our little black and white seabirds, and we miss them in the off season. But we're also excited to see them complete another cycle of life and go forth into the world. So this year is special because it marks 20 years since this survey was founded on Whidbey Island by Frances Wood and Dr. Phyllis Kind. So we're really happy that you're here to share in this with us this year. And the purpose of this event is not only to recap the season with pictures and stories and get a look at the data that we've so carefully collected. And I know we are all very interested to see the data, but it's also to remember that we're part of a larger group working towards this effort and to celebrate that as well. We are here because we all feel a connection to the birds and to this beautiful place where we live, to Puget Sound. And that's what this is about. Spending time out on the beach in the early mornings and observing the guillemots strengthens our connection to the earth and the animals that live here. And through this data that we've been collecting and analyzing, that helps us to better understand and inform how we might protect and conserve Puget Sound. So conservation as a whole, when I think about it, it's pretty overwhelming to think about, but it brings us hope and optimism to know that as a group we can make a difference. And I can't thank you all enough for giving your time and energy to be a part of that. So I just want to give you a quick overview of what to expect this evening. We're going to start with a land acknowledgement, and then we're going to follow that with some slides and season highlights from the different regions. And then we will then have a presentation from our data guru, Dave Kraus. And following that will be our guest speaker, Maria Ruth, who will talk to us about pigeon guillemot postural behaviors and vocalizations. And after that, we'll give you a chance to ask Maria some questions. So as we're going through the program, feel free to drop some questions in the chat. We have a few folks monitoring that. Francis and Lee will be watching that. So hopefully we can get those answered from you. And then again, after Maria speaks, we'll have a chance for you guys to ask her some questions as well. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to Lee Badavinas, who is the Whidbey Island coordinator or co-coordinator, and she's going to give us our land acknowledgement. Hand it over to you, Lee.
Thank you. Our land acknowledgement is actually from Shannon Bolt, and I feel fortunate to share her words. As a group, we recognize that we are residing on the ancestral lands of the Coast Salish people. These tribes have lived on and cared for the land and water since time immemorial. We respect and honor all Indigenous people and acknowledge our responsibility to learn the truth about history, support tribal sovereignty and livelihoods, and take action towards inclusion, partnership, uplifting Native communities, and continuing their legacy of stewardship.
It doesn't have any drawers.
Great, thank you so much, Lee, for reading that. So we're going to go straight into these slides and season highlights from the region. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, hopefully you can all see this.
That's what they look like. They got these silliest feet.
All right.
Sunshine.
So before we go into the different regions, I thought it might be fun for some of you to actually see a map of where all of the different regions are located and the colonies that are being surveyed every year. So for 2023, we had 7 regions and 63 colonies that were surveyed. And this map here is actually, it's on our website and it's an interactive map. So that's why the icons look a little bit large. You can actually zoom in and out on this map. And if you click on the regions, you can see who the coordinator is for that region. And then you can also click on the different icons to see the colony names. So that might be something fun to check out. I will go ahead and put the link in the chat where you can find this. Let's see if it'll let me do that.
So if this is recorded.
Okay. Chat, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Trying to turn music on. I don't know what I was thinking.
And I think we have a few microphones that aren't muted at the moment. If you could just locate your microphone icon, it's on the lower left of your screen. That would be helpful.
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to hand this over to our first region, which is Clallam County. And Ed Bulby is going to give us that introduction. Take it away, Ed.
Okay, thank you, Shannon. Can everyone?
And you might
hear
need
me?
to turn up your volume. It's a little bit hard to hear. Oops.
Can everyone hear me now?
No.
It's quite faint.
Sorry, my microphone is faint, but I will speak up. But I'm going to start on a serious note for Clallam County. I'm going to show a very short video what happened in Clallam County in 2022 at our breeding survey. It's a short video that Bob Frainer filmed. We had a team of observers already assigned on the beach. Another team were walking down the beach, and the following event happened as they were walking down the beach following northwards. Go ahead and show the video.
Oops, sorry about that. That's not mine to play. Okay, there we go.
You will see 2 observers that were heading down the beach being filmed by the other observers south of the beach. And we're highlighting this for multiple reasons. One, for obviously public safety for observers and other people. Secondly, that this slide happened one of our most productive seabird burrowing nesting sites on this particular beach on Port Williams. And it wiped out most of the nesting birds for that year. And in this year, 2023, we only had 2 nesting birds, which would normally be 10 nesting birds. Okay, the next slide is showing now is Dan Staler. After the slide showing the sloughing off of that beach. And you cannot read it, but there's a sign at the bottom of that beach that we had produced with our co-partners, Clallam County Public Parks, to ask people to stay off of the sloughs of the beach segments for this particular reason. That was okay. And go ahead with the next. In this video segment filmed by Linda Nakamura, so most of us have been seeing deliveries of gunnels and so forth to our beach birds. This was a adult feeding on the bird, and it had a very tasty result of that bird. Okay, go ahead.
Hmm?
Next.
Oops. There we go.
Okay. This is Bob Frainer's pigeon ballet on the surface. And
All right.
I think that's it.
I think that's all we have for clown. Thank you so much, Ed, for those wonderful videos. I really love that Guillemot gulping down the gunnel. That was a nice catch on video.
Yep.
Thank you for sharing that. And now let's go to Camano Island, where we have Ellen Thureen as the coordinator. Ellen, do you want to take it over?
Need to unmute.
Okay, hi everyone. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. This was a big year for Camino. We went from 1 sites to 4 sites. So it was a maybe not a big leap from your perspective, but from ours, it felt very big and we were very excited about it. And so grateful for 3 new people who stepped up to be our leads and data entry technicians, Dan Hale, Sandra Garson, and Rob Gorman. So that was great. And also Betsy, Dave, and Shannon, thank you so much because you guys really gave us what we needed to make things work and keep us on track. Very appreciated. I'd like to introduce Dan Hale, our Ypsilanti Point lead, who is also a gifted photographer, videographer, and ever-ready substitute volunteer. And I might add, he's not afraid to get in the water when the need arises, and it did. The following video and slides are his. Dan?
Hi, everybody. So what we're looking at here is a video of Ypsilanti Point in the northwest part of Camano. It's right across from Mariners Cove and Strawberry Point on Whidbey. This is one of the new sites that Ellen mentioned. We just began monitoring there officially this year. And on this occasion, this was the 4th of July, I happened to bring my camera and my long lens, and Wendy and I, who were there monitoring, were just overwhelmed with the number of visits to this bluff. And they weren't just going to what appeared to be potential nesting sites, they were landing every which whereabouts, in the brush, on tree roots, just popping in and out of little slight places like they are located right there now, hanging on for dear life, interacting like they always do in pairs, which was really fun to watch. And it seemed that the whole flock, which was a 20 plus on that occasion, were trying to just sort of assert to the other critters in the environment, this is our bluff. We're taking this one over. So bug out kingfishers and eagles and whomever else. It really was a unique experience. You know, I came equipped, being a new site, trying to figure out, okay, well, where are the real potential burrows? And let's be very careful about monitoring who goes where. But frankly, the number of visits to the bluff were so overwhelming. There would be 5, 6, 7 of them happening simultaneously in different spots. It was virtually impossible to log everything. But as I say, they didn't seem to be going just to burrow sites. Lots of other birds in the area, including those goldfinches. It was really a unique experience, and the site access was quite a challenge. Getting down there on the ship's ladder was like a scene from Hitchcock's High Anxiety, as I know Ellen will attest.
Okay. I think Dan has a few more slides, but I just wanted to say, as we say goodbye to 2023, I would be remiss to not say it is the people and the new friendships that arise as much as the birds that keep us coming back year after year. A special mention to our new and Port Susan volunteer Robin Lee. She offered to take 8 of us out on a 30-foot boat through the San Juans. And we raised our $500 portion to support the network while sharing amazing scenery, bird life, and maybe most memorably, an unexpected seafaring misadventure. And although this is a tale for another day, I will say it was a fascinating study in teamwork, creative problem solving, grace, and patience. It was a really great, unforgettable day. And Dan indeed is not afraid of getting in the water. That's all I'll say. And thanks again, Robin. We hope you'll have us back again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ellen and Daniel. That was wonderful. And now we're going to move on to Whidbey Island and Lee Badavinas, who is going to take us through the highlights from their colony or their region. Let's see, where's Lee?
My favorite trick is
There we
to
go.
stay muted. Thank you, Shannon, and thank you for the segue, Ellen. Hello, everyone. I'm Lee Badavinas reporting from Whidbey. It's clear that all of us are gathered to celebrate the Guillemots. However, I'd like to take these 2 minutes to celebrate you, the surveyors, and in particular those on Whidbey. Throughout the season, Whidbey photographers such as Locke Pope, Jan Ledbetter, and Karen Crotsberry, and others have inspired weekly emails. And of course, in just a bit, you'll hear from the always marvelous Dave Kraus, our data guru. If I had all night, there still wouldn't be enough time to say, to convey our gratitude for all of you surveyors. But I'm going to focus on 2 of them because they have done something uniquely theirs. The first is Alan Waugh. He is the lead at Mutiny Sands. In his words, Mutiny Sands is a colony about 150 yards long, typical Puget Sound glacially compressed sand and gravel bluff. Except the last 2 summers, one Piju couple has nested in a human-made large boulder retaining wall at the east end. And this is something that we're noticing on Whidbey, that the guillemots are becoming more and more comfortable burrowing in human-made structures and close enough to humans that one might think they're a little bit compromised, but it doesn't seem to faze them. So Alan started surveying in 2015. And he's tracked data here, which makes him unique. He has tracked the number of burrows to which fish were delivered. And you can see these, I don't need to point to them. Let's see. And burrows to which, number of burrows to which fish were delivered. And then the very burrows to which fish were delivered. And then going from that to the number of fish delivered by species. And on Whidbey, sculpin, as you can see on his graph, are typically the most popular delivery fish. And then he also adds a narrative, and that is at the very end. And so you can take a look at these numbers and the beautiful way he conveys them. He also adds a narrative, and this year his narrative was that June 29th was a bad eagle day, 1 delivery. July 20th, 15 fish delivered to 10 different burrows. July 27th, bad eagle day, 18 to 12 Pijus on the water with fish in their beaks. And August 13th, 19 fish delivered to 9 different burrows. In other words, during the height of chick feeding season, we experienced 2 bad eagle days, which undoubtedly reduced the total observed number of fish delivered this season. Conclusion is that in 2022, on 3 days more and 40 adult birds counted. In 2023, on 1 day, 41 birds were counted, and on only 3 other days, 30 birds were counted. Therefore, more fish delivered to more burrows by apparently fewer birds. And he adds that he's curious why we observed such a large increase in numbers of burrows used and number of fish delivered this summer. So thank you, Francis. So thank you, Ellen, for that. The next one is Frances Vandal. She is the lead at, there we go. And she is the lead at Shore Meadow. Shore Meadow is a colony with impossibly high bluffs and thereby high burrows. And the rubbernecking to track the guillemot from sea to burrow is enough to send one to physical therapy. So Frances invented a survey stool with a seat that swivels. It took several prototypes, and this is the final version. You see Frances here with her cobbled bucket. and then the bucket itself. And Rob Harris took the last photo, which is proof positive how well this invention of hers works. You can see the imprint in the sand. She is a marvelous inventor. I don't have this talent, so I think it's even more admirable that with a 5-gallon bucket, a lid, and a turntable, and a lot of ingenuity, she solved a problem that I think all of us can relate to. And that is it from Whidbey. Thank you so much to all of you surveyors, and in my case, especially to all of you Whidbey surveyors.
Thank you so much, Lee, for sharing those with us. I really love that stool that she created. I think we all need the recipe for that. All right, so next we're going to go to Kitsap Bainbridge Island, where coordinator Cindy Holtz is leading that crew. And I believe Demi Allen is going to speak about the photos. But Cindy, did you want to give a little intro?
I just want to thank our volunteers. We had a big group of volunteers this year, so it was really nice to be able to alternate weeks and give volunteers some time off. And but Demi, I'd like to introduce him. He's been with us from the very start. And he's the colony lead for our Rolling Bay colony, with a view of which is seen in this photo. It's the most complex colony, and it has landslides and changes from year to year. So each year, Demi has to go out there with a group of volunteers and try to suss out where the active burrows are going to be in it. And it really changes every year. So I appreciate all the hard work that he's put in each year with great enthusiasm. So with that, Demi.
Thanks, Cindy. Yeah, so this Rolling Bay site is on the east side of Bainbridge, looking across at Shill Shoal Marina, and then Elliott Bay, downtown Seattle. And this is a shot of a group of guillemots in flight with the Seattle port cranes in the background, and it's a pretty urban site. You know, it's lots of cruise ships and cargo ships and that kind of thing coming out, and a lot of activity going on, and but the guillemots don't seem terribly concerned about it. But it has been very interesting to over the past 4 years to observe this site and how much it changes from year to year. You know, the changes in the bluff, significant slides occurring in sites where, you know, the primary burrows had been the year before, and that kind of thing. And also, burrows being used that are totally covered by trees, so it's incredibly difficult to see them at times. So that's a challenge. But it's been one of the things I and other volunteers love about this work is how much you get to see besides just the guillemots. It's you know, we regularly see porpoises and occasional orcas and eagles and many different kinds of birds, osprey, and tons of kingfishers and all of that. And so it's just a pleasure to be out there and observing what happens. You can go to the next slide, please. This was a funny morning. That there was a big log that was going down to the south, and I think as many as 7 guillemots, you know, perched on the log. I had never seen that before. They just stayed on it until it started to go out of the colony area, and then they left it. But that was pretty amusing. Next slide, please. Okay. Sorry, I thought this was a different photo, but yeah. So this is a picture of a bird just kind of hovering by one of the burrows, and yeah, it shows the nature of the bluff, which is typical, but ever changing. So yeah, so I think
I don't think I had another photo
yeah,
from you
no,
guys.
it's
I
fine.
may have missed
I
it.
think this is the photo, Demi, that where you were explaining how the bird was hovering in front of the bluff, but it never entered and it just hovered there for a while.
Yeah, I think it was maybe trying to decide whether it was a potentially useful spot or not. Yeah, but yeah, I think it's interesting. There on Bainbridge, there are a variety of different kinds of sites, and this, I guess the other thing I would say very quickly is, it seems like the birds are, as someone else mentioned earlier, pretty opportunistic. You know, when the bluff changes and that kind of thing, they see what they can work with, and this year we had a bluff or a burrow at the very top of the bluff, in a root hole under a tree, and it didn't seem like the kind of site that would be ideal, but but it was quite active. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much for sharing. So now we're
Pleasure.
going to move on to Vashon Mori Islands, and Bianca Perla is the coordinator there. Bianca, are you?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, there you are. I can't see everyone in this little film
Yeah.
strip we have. Take it
Thanks.
away.
All right. Well, our effort was small but mighty this summer. We had 3 volunteers. We actually, most of the coordination was not done by me. It was done by Lila Kramer, who was our research. I'm with the Vashon Nature Center, and Lila was our research assistant this summer. She was a student of ours in school programs growing up, and she had decided to go into environmental science and ended up at University of California, San Diego. And so she came back for the summer and coordinated the surveys for us. So this was Lila's site that you see here in this first picture, and it was quite broad. You can see over on the right hand side where there's a small cabin that's actually in the process of falling down the cliff. This is a very active spot, and so there were quite a few burrows, and this was one of the where we got the highest pigeon guillemot counts, and but we didn't get any food deliveries here recorded. We got a lot. We got no prey brought to the burrows, but lots of burrow visits. So next slide. This is another site that is at KVI. This is a long-term site of ours, and the volunteer here was Jean Berlzheimer. And this was an interesting site because it's also highly active, and the other 2 or 3 years that we've sampled it have been in a totally different place, but those got buried in a landslide this last winter. So it took Jean quite a long time to find out where the new active burrows were. And there's a lot of vegetation around them, but she finally found them. Okay, next. And then our third site was monitored by Laura Bienin, a longtime volunteer of ours, and she monitors the North End Ferry Dock, and that is a very active place for pigeon guillemots. And she got a lot of good photos of them with prey and mating and sitting out on the pier. We can keep going. Next. She was also able to document a lot of different disturbances just because she could get in a lot of different places using the dock. So she was able to see that seals were a big disturbance, which kind of surprised us here on the North End. And she even, not during this survey, but about a year ago, even saw a small pigeon guillemot get eaten by a seal. So she had her eye out for the seals and would document when they came through and watch the pigeon guillemot behaviors. So That's what this picture is a seal flipped onto its back, swimming upside down underwater there from the dock. She also was able to record dog sharks that were swimming around, but they didn't seem to have the same disturbance presence that the harbor seals did.
Wow. Well, thank you. When you said predator, I thought surely she couldn't be talking about the seal.
Yeah, the cute little harbor seals.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness. So
that was
watch
kind
out.
of an interesting find. Yeah,
Thank you so much, Bianca.
sure.
And now let's move to East Jefferson, where we have Brenda Johnson is our coordinator there. And we'll let Brenda introduce some of her colonies.
East Jefferson goes from Brennan on the west side of Hood Canal all the way up to Port Townsend and around Discovery Bay to the east boundary of Clallam's survey area. So we see lots of habitat types in that long stretch of shoreline. But we wanted to highlight tonight for you guys created structure, like we've seen in some of the other updates. This is an area where we have some historic sites in some human-built environments that are pretty interesting. And we wanted to just show you the highlights of two of those. The first one is the Port Townsend Marine Science Center Aquarium at Fort Worden State Park, just north of Port Townsend. It's a place where there has been a focus on pigeon guillemots for quite a few. Fish and Wildlife Service erected somewhere around 10 nest boxes specifically for pigeon guillemots as part of a contaminants study that was Puget Sound wide. But the study ended shortly thereafter for fear of bird viruses being transmitted to humans there. So we had two wonderful volunteers this year, Lindsay and Amber, who actually mapped out this pier site from both the water and from the top of the pier. And this is an example of how they were able to diagram where the birds were going. And you can see here on the bottom right, the extent of the pier and the aquarium. It's really quite a large structure. Next one, Shannon. Thanks. And just to give you all an idea of what the guillemots are finding underneath, here's a pair on the right that has taken up residency under what looks to be a piece of metal flashing. And you can see there's another bird behind them.
That's very interesting.
Pier, and we just found it really fascinating to think about. We know that these guys have nested and produced young in the last 2 years. This year, Lindsay and Amber witnessed one prey delivery, not as many as we've seen in past years, but there has been historic use and provisioning witnessed at this site. So we think it's just difficult to study. And now I'm going to turn it over to Karen Ertl. And if you'd switch the slide, Shannon.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Hood Canal Bridge Colony. I call these our concrete nesters. And I'm sure most of you have driven over the bridge at some point. But to keep myself organized, I had to draw this sketch here to show where the nesting occurs. Even though the bridge itself is 1.5 miles long, we're only studying the western half of it, which is in this picture, but most of that nesting occurs on what you're seeing in the picture here, what I call the approach. And then there's these they nest underneath the approach. And then there are these two concrete support slabs. Whoops. And then the truss there, which is that kind of triangular structure. And I can tell you that having stood underneath the bridge during low tides, it is incredibly loud under there with all the traffic going on. I don't know how they do it. In 2022, last year, our first year, we had deliveries at 11 nest sites. But this year, I'm not sure what happened. It went down very precipitously. We only had 5 nest sites with deliveries. So there's some great variability there. All right, next. One of our challenges at this site is just actually seeing where they're nesting because it's not visible exactly where they're going. The picture in the middle here shows the underside of the bridge approach. And I'm assuming that the birds just are laying their eggs on top of those beams, which seems bizarre, but they seem to survive up there. On the left there, you can see one guillemot who is just dropping in a complete vertical position with its wings out, its feet splayed out. Again, just very interesting. On the right, you can see 2 guillemots on those concrete support slabs. This is where they hang out. But around the corner there on the inside edge is where they have their nests on those concrete supports. All right, next slide. Here, you'll see on the left, the guillemots hanging out on the pontoon, which is, you know, the floating part of the bridge. They really like to hang out there. They don't nest on there, but it seems to be like their version of a beach because it's close to the water. And then I love this picture on the right. We were just fortunate to see all these guillemots right next to this big old submarine coming through the Hood Canal Bridge, which was pretty interesting, very early one morning. That's it.
Thank you,
That's
Karen.
definitely
That's
something we
it.
don't see all throughout the rest of the regions. Sorry, Brenda. Didn't mean to
I was just saying, thank you, Karen, and thanks to all the volunteers who helped us this year. It's been really fun.
Thank you to both of you for sharing those stories. Okay, and last but not least, we have South Sound region, and I'm going to hand this over to Terrence Lee.
Thanks, Shannon. Yeah, so like with a lot of other groups, you know, we've definitely had our share of interesting moments throughout the year. We do definitely have some colonies where there are birds that interact with human structures, like you can see here. That's a derelict ferry, actually, and we don't see the birds actually nesting inside the ferry, but we're not surprised if maybe there's a few that are being a little bit secretive, but it's actually adjacent to what used to be an active colony, which we don't survey on a regular basis. But it's just very interesting to see that shift in burrow selection by this particular species. I mean, they're definitely an adaptable bird, and it definitely makes it more interesting and keeps us on our toes. I mean, we definitely have some colonies that are a little more challenging to survey for a variety of different reasons. Down here in South Sound, you'll see in one of our photos that we definitely have a lot more vegetation. And one of our colonies, next slide, we had a really solid team. I nicknamed them the Silly Gilly Gang. Their ringleader is actually here tonight. She'll be giving a couple things to talk about here soon. But as you can see, the team chemistry here is just extremely solid. They've got matching t-shirts. They don't all quite have matching socks, but they all have red socks. And it's been a real pleasure to see how some of these teams have become independent over time And with this particular team in particular, this is the Edgewater team. Edgewater is a colony that currently consists of 4 active sites. And we're really fortunate to have had the kind of cohesiveness at this colony, given just how many birds there are there and just the difficulty in being able to adequately see all the activity and keep track of what the heck is going on. I mean, like with some of these other colonies, you know, sometimes there's just more birds than one person can handle. So it really helped having a team of this size to be able to spread out and see everything. And I'll mention the lady at the far end to the right. We didn't have a map to show, but Susan Morgan, has been for the last 2 years, if I remember correctly, been putting together these amazing hand-drawn maps, which she then updates every week. And they are by far the most detailed illustrations that we have seen that constitutes a colony map. I mean, it has very notable landmarks. It has indications of ideal observation points for each of the different sites. And so it's just really helpful having that. And it's not something that we certainly expect of, just an average team, but it just goes to show that when you have such a really solid team, you can really achieve a lot. And so, yeah, this team definitely rocked Pigou this season and, in previous seasons. The Silly Gilligan, they definitely take their business very seriously, but they have fun too. They actually had the Gilly Gala, which, as you can see here, they had some little fun finger foods amongst other dishes. And, yeah, we're just super fortunate to have a team that's just really amazing. So huge kudos to the Edgewater team. And like I said, you'll be hearing from one of them here in a little bit. And last but not least, I want to highlight a little postcard that we got from one of our previous volunteers. I'm not going to read the whole text here for you. And I'll probably actually get permission from Kelly to see if we can post this on the SSGN website. I just found this postcard to be really touching because Kelly, she wasn't really involved very much, but it seemed to have a very positive impact. And, it led to her moving on to bigger and better things. And, she really just highlights what her experience meant to her. And I'm sure Ann Mills, who's also on this call, can share a little bit about some of her experiences with the survey season this year. So Ann, go ahead.
I think Ann might be muted.
Okay, well, thank you, Terrence. I just want to thank all the volunteers for all their time. And, there are times a little different than some of these pictures when it can get a little slow. And the thing I've noticed about Pigeon Guillemot volunteers is that they kind of melt into the environment and experience whatever's there. Whether it's taking pictures of clouds, whether it's watching a family of otters go by or a family of mergansers. So it's special no matter what's happening. And I just appreciate all the folks that came back again this year and all the new folks. And it's been really fun. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Ann, for sharing. Yeah, it's been really humbling these last 11 seasons. And everyone's been doing amazing work. So keep it up. And back to you, Shannon.
Thank you so much. And thank you to all of the regional coordinators for everything you do. It's tough during the season just to keep everybody going. And so I really appreciate all of the work you do throughout the season to keep the data coming in and helping your surveyors, giving them the support that they need. It really makes a huge difference. So thank you so much. And thank you for sharing your stories. I'll stop sharing that. So now I'm going to hand it over to Dave for our 2023 season data summary presentation. And I just want to say really quickly, for those of you who don't know Dave Kraus, he is a Whidbey Island surveyor, and he's also our data guru extraordinaire. And I believe I speak for all of us when I say that we would be completely lost without Dave. He is truly that amazing. So Dave, I will let you take it away.
Thank you, Shannon. All right, let's see here. Hopefully everybody can see this. You don't all have to answer though. First, I'd like to say what a great job the regions did this year getting their data into Survey 123 and ready for review. This was the first year that's happened, and it's really cool having essentially a complete data set for 2023 to show you today. So thank you. Hopefully next year will be just the same. Trying to advance this slide. It's interesting. Right. First off, just a slide about what the volunteers did this year. Total volunteers, 255 people on the beach, which is impressive. 64 colonies surveyed, 761 surveys performed across the SSGN, and over 5,000 volunteer hours. Those are beach volunteers. So that is kind of amazing, really. We've had people ask who uses our data, and these are the people currently that we know are using our data. The blue ones, there are links. So this will be posted on the PIGU website. So if you want to try these links out and see some of our data on these websites and what they're doing with our data, please do. Rest of this is about specifically the data you all have entered. But I'm going to start with a couple of definitions because it's hard to make sense of what I'll show you without understanding where the numbers come from. Probably all know that how we derive the population numbers for each region, for each colony, for each region, for the SSGN overall, is we take the high count during the season for each colony, regardless of when it happens. And we consider that the colony population. And we sum all of the colonies to get the region population. And we sum the regions to get the SSGN population. And we talk about active burrows. And an active burrow is a burrow that we've seen a PIGU go into either with or without prey, it doesn't matter. And we consider that if the burrow is active, if PIGU are going into it, that represents an attempt to breed. So here we have the percent of PIGUs attempting to breed is equal to 2 times the number of active burrows divided by the PIGU population. And the 2, of course, is because it takes 2 to make eggs. And the chick burrow is any burrow that we've seen prey being delivered to. And the percent that we consider are successfully breeding is 2 times the number of chick burrows times divided by the pigou population times 100 per percent. So there will always be more active burrows than chick burrows. Well, almost always. We have a region where that wasn't true this year, which is cool. This is just a snapshot of some numbers, kind of totals for the season. This is 2023. The overall population of pigou is over 2,000. The active burrows, 534. There are 333 chick burrows, and there are 1,475 fish delivered to the burrows. I assume fish, but occasionally I understand there are shrimp and crabs and whatnot. So it'd be interesting to hear if that has actually happened. The rest of the slides, a lot of the reporting is done as percentages. And the reason I do that is so that we can see everybody's curve and everybody's results kind of normalized, so that you'll see that Whidbey has a good chunk of the total number. And if I present just raw numbers, some of the curves from the regions with fewer colonies at this point kind of get left out. So you'll see a lot of percentages in what follows. This slide is all about breeding success. This curve on the left-hand side shows the percent of pigou attempting to breed versus the percent who are successfully breeding. So this is a function of chick burrows, and this is a function of active burrows. And the last 2 years, it's been around, it was 49% this year for attempting to breed. So almost 50% of the pigous we're seeing are attempting to breed. And 30% of those are producing chicks. 30% of the total pigous are producing chicks. Over on the right-hand side, you can see these same numbers basically, but broken out by each of your regions. And Kitsap is the region where every active burrow they had was also a chick burrow. So that's they're very efficient over there, the pigou in Kitsap. One thing about one note I want to make about determining active burrows, the way we do that is by seeing that a pigou has entered a burrow. In a lot of cases, it's difficult to know whether or not a pigou has really entered a burrow. So it's really important to the best we can to discriminate between ledge sitting and whether a pigeon guillemot has in fact entered a burrow. Because if you're not sure, probably better to call it a ledge sit rather than a burrow entry, because that will not skew the data, making maybe the number of attempting to breed unrealistically high. This slide is about the type of prey that are delivered, and it's a trend chart for the last 3 years, which is the period over which we've been using the new data system, Survey 123. And you'll see that the percentages of each type of prey are pretty steady, but a lot of these numbers are driven by the Whidbey numbers. So the next slide will show it by region. And I think what's interesting here is pretty much all the regions have around 80%, just under 80% gunnels. And South Sound, not quite so much, and Whidbey definitely not so much. A couple of years ago on Whidbey, we were about 50-50 gunnels and sculpin. And it would be really cool if someone took that as a project to try and figure out why some areas favor gunnels while others don't. And it's true between colonies as well. Some within a region, some colonies are high gunnel colonies and some are not. Some are more favored towards sculpin. And Pigou don't fly very far away to capture the fish that they bring back to the burrows. So obviously it has something to do about availability rather than preference, I would think. This one, it looked really neat before the cat got into it, but this, so this is as a percentage, each point here is a percentage of the total Pigou delivered during the season for each region. So here, this blue line is Kitsap, and they had their peak of about, if you go over here, looks like 28% of all of the prey delivered during the season were delivered on this, I think it's the 29th week of the survey. So the week before this week. And this is pretty typical. You can see everybody peaks around late July. All of the regions had the most prey deliveries in the late July time period. The darker blue line here is simply a total of the prey delivered for each week. And the peak here, peak of that going over here to this axis looks like about 270 prey were reported delivered in that week around the SSGN. The next two slides are about provisioning, and we don't really know. We don't know how many chicks fledge. We don't know how many chicks there are. We don't know how many fledge. We don't know how many may be predated or just not be fed, die for whatever reason. We don't know much about what happens to the fledglings from the burrows that we monitor. But there are a few things that might tell us, at least give us an indication of how successful a particular burrow is. And this first graph on the left here is the average number of observed deliveries per burrow. So it's an average. So over the last 3 years, we've been a little over 4 deliveries per burrow over the entire season. So for a typical colony, maybe it's a 12-week season, and maybe the number of weeks where there are deliveries, maybe that's 8 weeks. So it's 8 hours of study at the beach, watching deliveries. So about 4 per burrow. Now the one on the right is a distribution of the deliveries per chick burrow. And we'll take this first column here. So the example here is 35%, which is right about there on this axis, of chick burrows had 1 or 2 observed deliveries. So these are the burrows that had 1 or 2 deliveries that we saw over the entire season. So 35%. And this one is high. This one's pretty high too, nearly, I think it's 24. So these 2 categories alone accounted for just about 60% of all of the chick burrows. And that doesn't seem like, when you look at some of these others, the other 40%, that doesn't seem like very many chick deliveries. So, or prey deliveries, excuse me. So what's going on there? Well, there could be a lot of things, or that maybe there was only 1 egg in that burrow, or maybe only 1 chick hatched, or maybe that burrow was predated by something, or failed for other reasons, or maybe the Pigou are delivering at a somewhat different time than we're out there. But there are lots of reasons. But you might think that seeing this, maybe they would be less successful. Those burrows would be less successful than the burrows that, say, had 9 to 10 deliveries during the time we were monitoring. So it's kind of though at some point, I'm sure we'll have a model of the expectation or the survival of chicks, a model that will predict chick survival. And this slide is similar. This graph is similar to that. This shows the number of different weeks that we saw prey being taken to burrows. So for the example here on this first, with number 1, there were 93 burrows that had a single observed week of deliveries. That's practically a third of the total chick burrows. And that doesn't seem like a very, like those would be successful. You know, when we're also seeing lots of burrows that we saw. Let's see here, this is probably about maybe 30 burrows that we observed, that we saw 5 different weeks prey being delivered to. So I know these numbers mean something, but I know that in lacking any real information about the survival of chicks, they just suggest something. We can't really use them at this time to predict what's happening with chick survival. And who knows what this fish is? Is that a cod? I'm thinking it is. And I had to throw in a disturbances slide because of all the trouble we all go through trying to figure this out. So what this slide shows is it's all about eagles, pretty much. And the number of slight disturbance to major disturbance, we're just about even. I don't have that here, I'm not showing it, but those were pretty level across the total disturbances. But eagles are by and large the main just detractor from Pigou being able to go about their business. So the supporting data for this, for most of the preceding, is here. So if you all at the regions want to do run your own stuff, you can grab the numbers from here. If you want to do some if you want to know what your colonies are doing, I can provide that to you. I can break this out by colonies. So I probably will do that and post it in some fashion. When Alan Waugh, when Lee was showing Alan Waugh's really nice data from Mutiny Sands on Whidbey, I got really nervous and I had to go to my data to see, geez, I know he's right. Hopefully I have the same numbers, and in fact I did. So that was fulfilling. So thanks. Again, thank you for all the great work you did in putting data in and the quality control you've done on it. Take care.
Thank you, Dave, for that fabulous presentation. It's really fun to see the numbers and to be able to visualize what actually happened during the season. And just to echo what you said, we really gave everyone a pretty tight timeline. So good job to everybody for buckling down and getting that data in, and to all the QA/QC teams as well that spent many hours going over the data and making sure it was correct. Thank you for that. So now I want to introduce you to our guest speaker tonight, Maria Ruth. Many of you may already know her because she's a fellow South Sound surveyor and team lead at Edgewater Beach. And she's also an esteemed author, notably of A Sideways Look at Clouds and Rare Bird, Pursuing the Mystery of the Marbled Murrelet. And Maria is now focusing on writing a book about pigeon guillemots, which has led her to become an expert of sorts through the vast amounts of research she has done. So I'm really excited to have Maria with us here today to talk about what she's discovered about pigeon guillemot postural behavior and vocalizations. Thank you so much for being here today, Maria.
Shannon?
There you are.
Here I am. Let me just get let's see. I think I need to be made a host, do I, to share my screen?
Nope, it should work.
Okay, there it is. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, share sound. There we go. I'm really delighted to be talking about the pigeon guillemots, my second favorite Elstid, and so pleased to have been invited by Shannon and Francis to share some of what I've been learning. As you all probably are aware, these guillemots are extremely chatty vocal birds, and I became very curious about what they were saying, what they were trying to say, and discovered the work of Douglas Nelson, who studied pigeon guillemot vocalizations and postures on southeast Farallon Island, west of San Francisco, for 5 years, 1977 to 1982, and wrote 3 excellent papers in the 80s on this topic. And I realized that these birds are really telling us so much about what they're doing, what they're intending to do, who's who in the colony, what's going on in their environment, if we could just listen and piece together their calls and their songs, their vocalizations, and their body language. They do have very distinct postures that are associated with their calls. And I was interested to see in some of the videos from the different regions that those calls and postures were caught on camera. But so often we just think, oh, the birds are just chattering, or they're assuming funny postures, but we don't really have a way to understand what they mean. And I started watching them very carefully and was very, very happy to have a team at Edgewater who was as into it as I was. So we got a lot of video and audio recordings and observations about the birds' postures and their calls. And we think we know our birds a little bit better than we did in the past years about what they're doing at their colony during their breeding season. So I am not going to share 700 phrases with you. What I'm going to do is talk about just 3 of the 12 calls that Doug Nelson identified. He was on Southeast Farallon studying guillemots, recording them, analyzing, describing their calls and their postures. And he put together some ideas, some suggestions and theories on what he thought all this activity meant. So my first question is why do I use the word vocalization? It always sounds so sort of formal and sciencey, but really, I think as we understand that calls and songs don't really capture the nuance, the sophistication, the variety of vocalizations. They are not really calls, they're not really songs, especially for the guillemots. These are not songbirds, and they don't have the distinctive call that you might say use to identify a songbird with, say a winter wren or a robin. You might describe them as calls, but I think of calls more as sort of simple, not as complex as songs, maybe a honking goose, a hooting owl, a caw, those sorts of sounds. And they're really, I think we talk about calls and songs because of our human aesthetic, that songs are somehow prettier. They're associated with breeding and with courtship and with a little more flourish in the vocal pattern. And the calls are really simpler and really just a way for the bird to say, hey, I'm here, hey, get away. Really simple. But really, it's not that simple at all. And the more we learn, especially recently, about vocalizations, it is mind-boggling to know how sophisticated our animals and birds are in their communication styles and how much information is embedded in their calls. So the first one I'm going to introduce you to, I imagine you're all familiar with this call because likely as you approach your birds at your colony, they might early in the season be disturbed by you, and they elicit this, that activity elicits this scream. It's a long, drawn out, down slurring whistle, also called a raspy wail. And I'm going to play it for you. And what I'm going to do with these three calls is I'm going to describe the call, describe the posture the bird assumes when making the call, and then I'll play the call, and then I'll put it all together so you can see in sort of the context what is happening. And then I'll explain what the bird is doing. So this first call is the scream, and you might want to adjust your volume. Guillemots vocalize at the high range frequency. So if you have hearing loss at that upper range, you want to crank up your volume here. So that was a call by one of our team members, Rachel Hudson. I didn't credit this slide for some reason, but this is the scream call. You can sort of hear that down slurring, long, sort of attenuated call. The posture of during the scream is that the bird has its neck fully extended, and its head is held horizontally, and its bill is agape. So you see those things, and I'm sure you've seen that, and maybe not associated with this call, but this is definitely the posture of a bird that is alarmed. So what it means is there is a predator nearby. The bird has been startled. And this can be a predator, would be an eagle, of course, as you've seen. When we are trying to document our disturbances at Edgewater, often we will not see the eagles flying over the bluff behind us or perched near their nest. We do have an active eagle nest right above our colony. So we might not see it, but we'll hear the guillemots screaming, and we make a point of looking around and studying the bluff and scanning the trees, and rarely do we not see an eagle. And that really helps us with our data, so we don't have to write unknown in that field on the data collection. So increasingly in the last several years, birding by ear has become very popular, and the use of sonograms, which is a computer-generated visualization of the bird's call using the frequency and the time to create an image, usually a squiggle. I'm sure most of you are familiar with what a sonogram or spectrogram, they're also called, what they look like. This one here, the 1993, this is from Doug Nelson's work on the Southeast Farallon Island. But Rachel Hudson has a recording software that she uses called Audacity that creates these sonograms. And what I love about these great colors is that you can see with the brightness, the yellow is the intensity of the call, and you get a little more detail, a little more information. And I will explain all about how Rachel does these sonograms and her recording equipment a little bit later in my show. But I wanted to show you some of the variety of what sonograms look like. If you are familiar with the app Merlin, you will know what sonograms look like, but it's a great way to see the sound of the bird and help you remember its call so you can identify it by ear. So here we have, this is 3 guillemots. You have the sonogram on top and the guillemots, and then I think it's being hidden, hold on here, by my picture, there's the little block. These birds now, you see the head is held horizontal, the beak is agape, the neck is stretched really long, and these birds, the one on the left is up on its tippy toes. These are in a high state of alert. The wings are held back as if it's about to fly because of the probably approach of a predator or the increase in the threat that they're perceiving. The scream calls are contagious. So often on the water, you'll hear one bird. Often we think we have a monitor bird who is checking out for eagles, and then the other birds will call in so that the information that there is a threat or a predator nearby moves through the colony, and they all react. So that contagious call. Now I'm going to play it again for you so you can see the sonogram and the birds and hear the call. And again, this is a call that we might have just said, oh, it's a whistle or a twittering or a scream call, but not really known the purpose of that call. But now you do. The next call is the hunch whistle. And this, obviously, the bird is in a hunch position, which makes it a bit easy to identify this one. It's one of the more recognizable ones, especially compared with the scream call posture. And it is this unique combination of call and posture that allows us to interpret the meaning of this display. So the hunch whistle is a continued series of whistle notes followed by an upslur whistle, and then often there are cheeps and seeps and short little calls known as frequency modulated calls in between these. The bird's head is held at 45 to 90 degrees, so it's very much tipped back, giving it sort of a hunched posture. Its bill is open, but between the whistle calls, it closes its beak and the head moves to horizontal, and that's very different from the scream call. And the tail is held upright. Almost it reminds me of a Pacific wren with its tail cocked up in the back. And this call indicates that, well, a couple things. One is that the bird is announcing its territory. So this call is done early in the breeding season, usually in April or May, before egg laying, when the birds are competing for territory. The males are showing off the nest site to the females. They will do this hunch whistle before the female approaches or enters the burrow. And this is a good way to know who's mating in your colony and which are the males and which are the females. And it doesn't always indicate that, because sometimes 2 males will hunch whistle together. So you have to watch the behavior also. Sometimes a photograph, this could be, any number of calls, but because you're in the field, you're watching the bird behave in front of you. You're hearing the call and possibly watching the birds move to their nest or at their nest. You can better determine which birds in your colony are breeding and where their nest sites might be. I know one of the regional coordinators was saying it's often difficult to find out where those nest sites are. But if you see this behavior often either at the nest, if you see your opening to your burrow, or nearby, that could indicate that the nest is nearby and they're nesting. Guillemots do have a territory that they defend around their burrow. So you will see this behavior in the burrow or around the burrow. So let me play you this call. And this one is a little tricky. I've got to, I wasn't able to edit the call. So I'm going to just advance it to where you'll hear the call. And it's discrete. So you have to listen to these sort of short slurring calls. You'll hear longer screen calls just before and after it to compare it to. But it does take hours of listening. But the useful thing is that with these postures, you know that this is a hunch whistle. So it's not critical that you hear the call because you can see the posture. But here we go. Okay. To 50 seconds. Okay, let's try it right there. Oops, I didn't quite, sorry, I didn't move it. Sorry. Those are little frequency modulated little peep calls. Okay, there we go. It is discrete. So what you can hear there, you hear the much longer scream calls and then these shorter, very intense calls that sound maybe like half of the scream call, but it doesn't have that sort of descending, trailing off at the end of it. And this again is a very distinct behavior, and I saw it in that slide earlier, and it's a common behavior. Okay. The next one is the duet trill. And this is a useful call for being able to identify which birds in your colony might be pairing up. It is used both early in the season during the pair bonding, when two mates are establishing their connection as potential mates, and also by established mates who have mated the previous year. And this call, it's a series of trill notes. They increase in frequency, and then there's a distinct upslur, and then it fades out. And the open bill, as you see here, is directed directly at the mate and almost touching the mate's bill. And often this duet trill will be accompanied by billing and circling, and the birds, if they're on land, moving onto land and then copulating and perhaps also moving to the nest site. So this is what the sonogram for the duet trill looks like. And you can see the little trills, the upside down V's moving toward that upslur right in the middle. Whoops, there we go. And then this sort of fading out of the call. So with that visualization in mind, here we go. And this is a video that one of our Edgewater team members, Lori Knighty, captured. It's a great video. The only problem is that during the filming, the Seattle Shellfish Company, which operates the shellfish beds at Edgewater, was operating its boat and churning up a lot of water and motor noise. So I've tried to filter that out, but you can hear and see these birds doing their duet. Okay, that is the duet trill. So these are clearly, now that you know, clearly birds that are parabonding or already bonded and are hopefully going to initiate a nest. Okay. And this, as you have heard many times from Frances Wood, that when you're on the beach, you should do your best to impersonate a piece of driftwood. So this is Rachel Hudson impersonating a piece of driftwood while she is making a recording, many that I've used tonight here. Rachel is a fabulous addition to our new team. She drives up, or to our team, she drives up from Chehalis for our surveys, and we are so glad to have her and her recording equipment as part of our team. And I wanted to share with you how Rachel put together her recording rig. I had looked into acquiring some recording equipment myself for learning about these bird calls, and a rig will run you $2,000 or $3,000 if you put it together off the rack. But Rachel, super inventive, super creative, created her own homemade rig, and I just wanted to go through the steps to show you what you too can put together with some ingenuity and some tips. And here we go. We have a parabola, which is a dollar store plastic bowl, and she has rimmed the bowl in camouflage fabric that's hot glued just to muffle the sound of the parabola if it hits a hard surface and to break up the circular shape of the parabola. She has an Olympus LS10 linear PCM field recorder, which will run about $200. The recorder holder is a shampoo bottle that is hot glued to the parabola and then covered in tan fleece. And the shampoo bottle is great for like an ergonomic grip, and the fleece also camouflages it. She has stabilizer straps, which are strips of fleece hot glued into place to hold the parabola in place. And perhaps my favorite part is the microphone cover or the windshield, which she described as a random foam thing my aunt found, held in place by the stretchy top of an old sock. So clearly super creative, and this worked so well at our colony. Rachel was able to record all sorts of calls and upload them to eBird. We got, after several tries, a recording of 2 chicks calling from in the nest, which has never been recorded or posted on eBird. So we are super proud of that effort from Rachel for our summer. And this is a variety of calls that she generated using the Audacity software, which is free. It's open source. Anyone can use it. You have a digital recorder, you upload your calls and create these sonograms, which then can be matched with the work of Doug Nelson, which is what I'm doing, to try to now put more information on eBird and Macaulay Library, which is operated through the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, so that we can learn what these calls mean. Currently, calls are not labeled, so they're just called calls. And we don't know if they're scream calls, alarm calls, trills, duet trills. There's no indication of that because people don't know. And I think it's important to know. So Rachel is adding all that information to her recordings and uploading it so we can learn, the public can learn more about these bird calls. Most of the calls that you hear on eBird or the, not Merlin, Macaulay are of screams. Why? Because when people approach guillemots with their recording equipment, there's a disturbance and the guillemots scream. So there's lots of scream calls and they're easy to record and loud. So those are the most frequently recorded calls, but they barely hint at the complexity of the guillemot calls. And probably, I think many of you might have attempted to record or identify guillemots using Merlin, which is a wonderful app through the Audubon and Cornell Lab of Ornithology. I've tried it. I have recorded guillemot singing, but Merlin will not identify it as a guillemot. This is the message I get. And this is common. It's not just my phone. All my team members cannot get Merlin to identify So what is the problem? Well, I dug in a little bit to Merlin and realized that they need 100 focal recordings, so high quality recordings, to teach Merlin how to identify birds that they list. And only 20 of the world's species have that number of calls. So I'm encouraging any of you who are so inclined to record your calls. You don't need a fancy, expensive rig, but it would really help learn more calls and share the complexity, the beauty of their range of vocalizations. And I've just described 3 tonight. Doug Nelson described 12 calls in his work. 12 distinct calls, each with a specific meaning, each accompanied with a different posture. From Rachel's work and her sonograms, I'm seeing sonograms that don't match any of Doug Nelson's work. So I'm wondering if it's a dialect or if there's a new language or they're describing something very specific. If the scream call, for instance, can be directed to identify just a general threat, or the guillemot will add a little chip note, a little short note at the beginning of the scream if the bird is a puffin or a rhinoceros auklet. So really specific information embedded in these calls. And just with a little bit of, say, paying attention on the beach, and it lends some background research, we can really let the guillemots tell us what they're seeing, how they're interacting, who's who in the colony, who's top dog, what their social structure is like, which is just by listening to what they have to say and what they have to tell us. So this work that I'm doing is just basically curiosity science. It might fall in the category of behavioral studies. It's not really the kind of research scientists are particularly interested in, but I just find it absolutely, completely fascinating. So I am including something like this with the combination of vocalizations, postures, and sonograms in the book I'm writing on the pigeon guillemot. And I'm really lucky to have Susan Guillemot, oh my goodness, Susan Guillemot woman, Susan Morgan on our guillemot team at Edgewater, and she's taken Doug Nelson's drawings and turned them into these beautiful watercolor renditions of the postures. So those will be featured in the book. And currently, this draft exists as a set of cards that Susan has illustrated, and I've used Doug Nelson's work and described the calls, when they occur, the posture, where they occur, what the message is. And I'm hoping to build these into my book so people can use them in the field to learn more about the guillemot behavior. So there's, in addition to vocal behaviors, there's a lot of other non-vocal behaviors. And I'm sure you recognize some of these on the left, especially the duet flights. We have to be a little bit careful about the word duet. I always think of duet as something kind of lovey-dovey, but in many cases, in most cases, this is not a lovey-dovey flight. This is an aggressive flight between two birds competing either over a nest site or a mate. And there was lots of tail biting and wing thwacking and aggressive play. And we've seen birds just collide in the air and tumble down into the water, still attacking and flying and continuing their chase underwater. It's beautiful, but also it's an aggression. And at the time, Doug Nelson had mentioned he was uncertain if the flights occur between mating pairs, but we have also seen male and female duet flying, landing, and then continuing billing or circling. So I think it's probably both, but you need just to be a little bit careful. I think we used the word synchronized flight in our data collection for the SSGN. So the duet word is a little bit misleading. But anyway, thank you all. These cards that I have, I am happy to distribute the PDFs of them to anyone. Just there's my email if you would like them to practice in the field to see what you can learn about your birds. I love this last picture here. I like to think this is not a guillemot that's vocalizing or displaying any particular posture that is associated with a vocalization, but I like to think that he's looking at us on the beach when we're out there, and that our body language and our quality of our voices just sort of lets them know that we care about them and that we're looking out for them. So I will end with that and take any questions about Guillemot calls and how to make deviled eggs that look like eggs.
Thank you so much, Maria. And I have to tell you that Guillemot that you chose to close out with was taken at Edgewater.
Oh.
So that's one of your birds. But thank you so much. That was really fascinating. And I feel like we're all going to go out and look at the birds differently now. So it's going to change the way we view their behaviors. Does anyone have any questions for Maria that you would like to ask? Feel free to unmute or raise your hand or put something in the chat. See, I'm looking to see if there are any hands up. There are so many of you there. Any questions? And then Maria, you put up your email address, is that correct? For people that want to get your information?
Yeah, I'm happy to send you out the PDFs, and they're designed to be, they're 2 per page, so you can format them sort of like 5x7 field cards or note cards. I call them calling cards, you know, but you can take them in the field, and yeah, those are the 3 that we use the most, or we're able to identify most easily this summer. But
and then we do have a question here from Victoria. She wants to know, when will the book come out and who is the publisher?
Oh, thank you. It will be out in the spring of 2025, which seems like a really long way away, but it is not. And it's Mountaineers Books in Seattle. So they're my publisher of my other books, and just a great outfit to work with. So thank you for the question.
Awesome. We can't wait. Any other questions out there for Maria? And again, we will have this. Oh, there's one. Go ahead.
I was just wondering, I only have one recording, but are you interested in receiving any recordings?
Sure. No, I would. I don't know what, I can't, I'm not technically adept to be able to upload them and post them, but I'd love to hear them. If they can be shared as an MP3 file or something like that. Yeah.
Come to think of it, I'm not sure how I'm going to send it to you, but well.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. And before we close out the evening, we do have one more item. As I mentioned earlier, it is our 20th anniversary. And so I'm going to pass this over to Michelle Sakaguchi. She's going to explain something fun that we're doing to celebrate our anniversary. Michelle?
Good evening, everyone. It's time to put on our party hats and get our streamers flying and our party, whatever those are called, but unfurl and just celebrate this wonderful opportunity, 20 years of our Pigeon Guillemot survey and counting. So hopefully 20 plus more years to go with this amazing collaborative and collective effort we do together. And so we have put together a t-shirt fundraiser to celebrate. And Govinda Holtby, who is joined, she is here with us. I saw you out there, Govinda. She has done all the amazing artwork depicting the Pigeon Guillemot. We have the Salish Sea map in the background with Whidbey Island highlighted in red because Francis Wood and Phyllis Kind Dr. Phyllis Kind were the ones that started this whole survey 20 years ago. So we're honoring all of us and all of our excellent efforts, and Francis and Phyllis Kind and the Pigeon Guillemots, and just our collective, celebrating together what we're doing. And I was so tickled to see those silly Gilly gangs with their t-shirts on, and just how much fun they're having and how unifying it is to be together. I think we all find them so special, the Pigeon Guillemots, and we love being out on the beach. We love supporting this effort and celebrating them. And with this shirt, you can keep them, I was thinking, you can keep them closer to your heart. They're right there on your chest. As an educator, I like being able to have a talking point. So like when I'm out with kids or out on the beach, or oftentimes we'll talk to friends and we'll say, what do they look like? And so if I'm wearing my sweatshirt or t-shirt, I can show people what the pigeon guillemots and their breeding plumage look like, where it is that they are breeding, and where we're spending our time out on the beach in the summer. So I hope you join us all in purchasing or sending a donation. This is a campaign fundraiser. It is live right now. It will go until October 24th. It closes then. So if you just go online, I think that, oh yeah, Shannon, thank you so much. She put a link to the website, which is Custom Ink. You just click on the link and you'll see the options for t-shirts and sweatshirts. We made sure to pick a high quality t-shirt and sweatshirt, so you'll really want to wear it just for it's comfy. And it will be, you just pay directly through the website and it'll be sent directly to you in the mail. And after everyone is done participating after October 24th, they'll all go into the press and be printed and sent out, and you'll receive them within 2 weeks. So we hope you'll join us in celebrating and joining us with the fundraiser. And Christmas is coming, so it could be a nice gift to give family and friends as well, and help them to raise awareness and fold them into this wonderful celebration and survey that we do together. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And the information will be on the Pigeon Guillemot and the Salish Guillemot network as well. And you can,
Yes, thank you so much for introducing that to us. I agree with you. I would love all the t-shirts. So it is live on our website right now. I posted both links. You can either go directly, or you could go to our website later and scroll down on the home page, and there's an ad there that you can click on to go to the ordering page. So yeah,
Great.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
Yeah, thank you, Shannon. Thank you, everyone.
So that is all we have for this evening. Thank you all so much for coming. I want to applaud you all for your dedication to the study. And thank you for showing up week after week, rolling out of bed early in the morning and carefully recording and entering your data. And of course, for loving the Guillemots. We hope to see you back next year. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone.